Welcome to the HiRSE-Seminar series on research software engineering in Helmholtz and beyond.
So hi, thanks for the introduction, Claire. I work in the University of Manchester RSE team, and we've been using Agile for several years now, but just in one department, which was the mobile application development team. So that's been going on a while. I wasn't in that department, but we decided Adrian was running that team and decided it was really useful in the RSE setup. So about a year ago, we started plans to roll out RSE to all of our Agile to all of our RSEs. So in January this year, we did a dry run day. So we made a 2-day course. I can show you that later. We put it on the software carpentry style course, and I can share the link to that. We did a dry run day in January 24, and then we did the big 2-day training event in April for all of our RSEs, and the people who attended the dry run day, the RSEs who attended the dry run day, acted as helpers. So today I'm going to be talking about, I've got a Mentimeter involved in this, you'll be pleased to hear. So hopefully if it all works, I can do audience questions. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to ask some questions about project management in your group. They're quite general questions. And then I'm going to give you an Agile and Scrum overview. And then we're going to ask some questions about Scrum in your group and what you think the take-up would be. And then I'll talk about adaptation for the University of Manchester RSE teams, including things like the requirements capture, the tools we use, and modifications we've made. We've got some metrics and measures. It mainly consists of GitHub, using the GitHub API to find out how many pull requests and commits and things people are doing on our team. And then the final set of Mentimeter questions is about, whether you would want to adopt Scrum for your projects. Okay, sorry, the screen change doesn't always work. So first of all, project management in your group. So if you want to join in with the Mentimeter, it'd be great if you did. There's a QR code there and a short URL. So if I just switch over screens now, I'll just let you do that first, and then I'll share the other screen with the results on. I'm not getting any results yet. If anyone has problems, let me know, because what I can do instead is share the RSECon results that we got when we did this presentation at the UK RSE conference, which we did in September. So one response so far. So I'll start switching over now. We've got the use code on that as well. So they're starting to come in now. So we've got a lot of GitHub, GitLab, Scrum-like. Yeah, we would describe our process Scrum-like because we see it as a tool to adapt to what works best for you. But I'll go more into that in a slide. So Kanban, that's something that we use. We do use a Kanban board as part of Sprint, and it's something that we used to use before we adapted Scrum and Agile. Trello, another popular tool. We've tried all of these. Okay, and issues, we still use issues a lot, but not so much for project management. It's like kind of part of the Agile project management process. Okay, and then I think the next question is part 1 as well. So have you had any training, formal or informal, in whatever project management methodology you use in your group? Okay, we had some Scrum Master training. So our grade 7s, who are our RSE leaders, had Scrum Master training, which our IT department was able to pay for, and then the other training has been in-house for the actual, adopting Agile for the RSE team has all been done in-house. Okay, So I'll get on with the slides. So now I'll give you a quick Agile and Scrum overview. So Agile methodologies. So it's a methodology for project and product management built on a set of values. The Agile manifesto, which is available online and has not changed for a long time, defines the values. So the key things are prioritizing customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan, which you can imagine, given the name is Agile, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, and working software over comprehensive documentation. So I think all of these, you can see how it makes the process more agile, because it's about people and how they work, rather than just saying this is a process and a tool, follow that, and coming up with a plan at the very start and just sticking to that plan. There are many implementations of the manifesto and its values. So Scrum is the most popular, but there's also others. Another popular one is extreme programming, which you may have come across. So if you remember, for the values, it's over and not instead of. So we're not saying, or the Agile manifesto authors are not saying forget contract negotiations and forget plans. It's just saying that you prioritize the left-hand side over the right-hand side. Okay, so if we look at a more traditional, sort of non-agile method, so the typical one that people know about, which is the example we used here, is the waterfall process. So what happens in the waterfall is the stakeholders, there's something called requirements capture, which is where the requirements capture team speak to the stakeholders, get all of their requirements, write them down, plan them, maybe do the Moscow must have, should have, could have. Then there's the planning and design, implementation, and then the testing. And then right at the very end is the feedback. And this is all only done once, so it's linear. So the way that Agile and Scrum differ from this, so the process is executed once for the entire project. The way that Agile and Scrum methods differ from this is that it's cyclical. So there are many sprints. So basically, you're constantly in a loop of getting feedback, adjusting the requirements, doing the planning and design, implementing, and then testing. And it's all done in sprints. So it's done in smaller pieces of work over and over again. And we're constantly getting requirements and feedback from the stakeholders throughout the process. A sprint might be 2 weeks, it might be a month, depending on how much the RSEs are working on a project, whether they're part-time or all of their time is on a project, and how many there are. So the product owner, who was the requirements engineer, I'll explain what the product owner does in the next slides, and there's now a Scrum Master who was the project manager, and the developers are still the developers, and the same with the stakeholders. So a project is carried out over many sprints, executed back to back, as we'll see in the next slides. Okay, so the Scrum roles. So the stakeholders, they have a vested interest in the product, obviously, as you're used to. They're not part of the Scrum team. They're not official members of the Scrum team. They can be a variety of non-Scrum roles, for example, researchers or end users, and they perform the user acceptance testing. The product owner is kind of like the go-between between the stakeholders and the Scrum Master. So they define and prioritize the work to be done. They ensure the work aligns with stakeholder needs, and they represent the stakeholders and the team. So as I say, they're the mediators. The Scrum Master manages the process. So they ensure the team follows the Scrum process. They remove any blockers, promote communications and information exchange, and facilitate the process. And then the development team are typically, in Scrum terms, in official Scrum terms, are typically 2 to 9 people in size, cross-functional in domain expertise, and self-organizing. They determine together the best way to complete the work. Okay, so what I'm talking about, so when I'm talking about the Scrum things at the moment, this is the actual Scrum, and then I'll go more into how we've adopted and adapted it in later slides for our team. Okay, so the Scrum team. Really, this is just to say that the Scrum team doesn't have the stakeholders in it. It's these three roles working together. Okay, so there are some important items that are part of Scrum. So one of the main ones is the product backlog. So the product owner, who, if you remember, is the mediator between the stakeholders and the development team, they own the product backlog. So it's a prioritized list of all the work to be done to deliver the complete product. It's managed by the product owner, but visible to all. Everything's very transparent in Scrum. What are the work items? So, for example, these can be new features, enhancement, bug fixes, and they can be written as user stories as well, if any of you have come across user stories. And a good issue has a clear definition of done. It's easy to see when the item is finished. And that's very important to the Scrum process. And it's a live, sort of living thing. Items can at any time be added, removed, reordered, and evolved with the product owner's permission. But it's not unheard of. Like, stakeholders can, with the product owner's permission, add items to it, but the product owner owns it. Okay, and also the development team can add items to it as well as they're going along if they find bugs and things. Okay, the sprint backlog. So just to remind you, we had the product backlog, and now this is the sprint backlog. So the sprint backlog is owned by the developers. It's items to be worked on in the next sprint as agreed by the development team. It's managed by the development team, so nobody else can add items to sprints, including the product owner. And this is quite important. It's more sort of static and fixed to the sprint, because obviously the developers want to know what they need to work on to achieve the sprint goals. So it's only if something sort of bad happens that you ever change what's going on in a sprint, or maybe good, but it has to be high priority event that's occurred for the sprint to be changed. The product backlog work items can be broken down into smaller items, then moved into the sprint backlog. Each work item has a size estimate, so story points representing the relative amount of effort to achieve the definition of done. So you can see there we've got the priority and then the points in the sprint backlog list. Okay, so once the sprint starts, then we can have a Kanban board that's got all of the work items, and then those move along as they get developed. Okay, so the sprint planning is a meeting. It normally goes on for, say, no longer than 2 hours, hopefully. There is actually a formula of how long sprint planning meetings should be, based on the number of developers and things like that. So hours are usually about an hour on our teams. I don't think it should be any longer than 2 hours. I think there is a rule in Scrum. So anyway, this is the filtering process where we decide what's going to go from the product backlog into the next sprint, into the sprint backlog. So the Scrum Master chairs this meeting, and as always ensures the process is followed and it gets agreed starts and end dates to the sprint. And the product owner shares the highest priority items and defines the sprint goal. And the developers break down the work items into smaller items, assign story points. So if you remember that it's some kind of measurement agreed by the Scrum team about story points are a sort of measurement of how long each will take. So it's easy to estimate how many of the items you can fit into a sprint. So how many they can agree to. So the developers populate the next sprint backlog and collectively commit to doing the work. So that's a Scrum sort of term there. It's the developers who agree, they work out the story points and the priorities, and they agree what will go into the sprint. Okay, there's a few meetings, other meetings as well in Scrum. So there's a daily stand-up. So it's chaired by the Scrum Master, it's attended by the Scrum team members. It's a strict timing, so it shouldn't be any more than 15 to 20 minutes, and everybody talking for a couple of minutes each. Each Scrum team member says what you did the day before, what you plan to do today, and any issues blocking progress. And the Scrum Master records any blockers and remove blockers after the meeting. And it's really important for the Scrum Master to make sure that arguments or deep discussions don't start taking place, and they get sort of sidelined to another meeting after. It's just a quick, like, 2 minute, 2 minute, 2 minute round each person, so everybody knows what each other's doing, and if there's any blockers. The sprint review meeting is chaired by the product owner, and it's attended by the Scrum team and the stakeholders. The developer, so this is every sprint cycle that one of these takes place. The developers present a demo showcasing the achievements of the sprint, and it's an opportunity for questions to be raised from the demo. Does the product meet the requirements? And the product owner captures all feedback, often adds more items to the product backlog, and maybe reprioritizes based on what comes out of the sprint review meeting from the stakeholders. And the sprint retrospective is chaired by the Scrum Master. It's time to reflect on the latest sprint. So what went well, what needs improving, assessment of the process. The important thing is it's an assessment of the process, not of individuals. And it's attended by the Scrum team, and it's all about adapting ways of working. So the ways of working are very much agile as well, in the agile process, so to fit everybody's needs and to work efficiently. Okay, so we're going to go back to the Mentimeter now and look at Scrum in your group. So there's a couple of questions here. So if I just switch over, so it's the same code and the same link. I'll just progress. I'll just change the share. So have you used Scrum or similar in any context before? Okay. I can't remember how many part 2 questions there are, but it looks like it's a pretty much evens, slightly more yes, have used Scrum before. And then if we go to the next one, have you used Scrum or similar in any RSE projects to date? Okay, no, okay, a few yes. Okay, not sure, fair enough. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. If it says part 3 at the top, don't answer it yet. Yeah, part 2 again. If you have used Scrum or similar on an RSE project, how did you find it? Please be honest, don't mind. Okay. Nice to see some people really enjoyed using it there. Okay, just look out for that part 3 again and don't answer it as part 3. Sorry about that. I should have revised this. Yeah, so I'll just go back to this one. Okay, we could look at those a bit more detail if we've got time later. So I'll now stop sharing that and go back to, okay, thanks for that. So, okay, so now we're going to look at our RSE team's adaptation of Agile for our team. So why adopt? So we're going to talk about adopting and adapting. So that's why we've highlighted the O there, just so you know you've got the right one. So why adopt Scrum and Agile? Okay, so it's constant evolution of requirements and prioritizes the constant evolution of requirements and priorities characterizes research. It's got a fail fast regular feedback mechanism, so this minimizes risk if you're constantly getting feedback from your stakeholders and you're not sort of going off developing something big and then finding out later that it's not useful or relevant. It's a small teams, often cross-functional, which we think fits the RSE model very well. And the RSEs get to focus on a subset of tasks, so it makes complex solutions more tractable. Okay, so there's clear roles and expectations. So as we saw from the product backlog and the sprint backlog, everybody knows what they need to be working on in the next sprint, and each RSE takes tasks off the board and works on them independently. History, progress, and plans always visible to all those involved in the project, which we really like. So this is an example. We use GitHub projects, and this is an example of a an issue card in GitHub projects where so that's one of our researchers, that's one of our RSEs. So it's a constant conversation, and people can update the issue cards. So each one of these issues has one of these related to it. So we can keep that up to date. And it helps eliminate the bus factor. So if somebody goes off sick or gets run over by a bus, then all of the information is there, and the conversations and those important decisions that you make a lot of when you're coding are all documented. So it's hopefully easy for someone else to come in and take over if required. So we're on to why adapt now. So developers, so in typical Scrum teams, developers work on one project at a time, whereas in the RSE academic teams in our department, RSEs usually work on multiple projects concurrently. It's usually two. It's rarely more than two. In Scrum teams, it's consistently 2 to 8 developers plus a product owner plus a Scrum master. So we have more unpredictable teams. It's usually one RSE, sometimes 2 RSEs, maybe sometimes more. Maybe an interested PDRA who likes to do development work, and maybe 1 or more academics. Typical Scrum projects have a dedicated product owner, whereas academics are often split between projects, often not available or engaged to do the product owner role. And typical Scrum projects have a Scrum master. So the senior RSE usually assumes this role, but they too are split between projects and work on several projects. The project is almost always a thing, e.g. a software solution or an application. So in our setup, a product might sometimes be lab support, including training, and not necessarily always a concrete asset. Okay, so what have we kept? So what has our RSE team kept in? So for the PI or a nominee is used as so the project PI, the academic PI, or some nominee, maybe a PDRA or a research fellow, acts as the product owner. A senior RSE, as I said before, acts as a Scrum master. RSEs and PDRAs and PhDs as the development team. We do the product backlog, the sprint backlog, because they're really important. The Kanban board is easy to do once you've got those. We do sprint planning every sprint. We do stand-ups, but not daily. So we just have regular check-ins, especially when you've just got a team of like 1 or 2 RSEs. A sprint review takes place every sprint. So that's where we're getting the feedback from the stakeholders, who and possibly end users, usually PIs of the project. And sprint retrospective. So it's normally done again via one-to-ones between the RSE and the senior RSE. So the core elements are all there, but how we implement them is flexible. So I'm not going to read all of this out, but I divided up some of the examples, and I found that two major variables are stakeholder engagement and the project size. So we've got examples in each one of those. So I can come back to that if we want to later, because it'll probably just take a bit too long to go through all of those in detail. But the point is, at this point, is just to show that there's different levels of those, and we've been able to adapt to whatever type of project that we've got. Okay, so for tools, we use GitHub projects. I worked on a project where we started implementing Scrum last year, and we had Jira, which was really good, but we don't have access to it, and there's problems with it. If you do want to use our university Jira, it's everybody shares everybody's projects, so it's not really what we want. So we've gone for GitHub projects, which is fairly new, and it's functional. It's growing in functionality, and it does occasionally have some really useful things that get stopped, that get pulled and things. It's still at that stage where it's figuring out what it's going to include. So project templates allow, so we develop project templates to allow ready-to-run configuration. So we have project templates, and we also have templates for the repos as well. Most Scrum functionality is available, or at least configurable, via custom fields. It lives alongside the code, so because we use GitHub in our team, so they sort of talk to each other very easily, because it's obviously the same thing. It's the same GitHub background, and project management and development exist side by side because of that. And it's easy to link GitHub repos, issues, PRs, and our customers can engage with the issues directly, so they have access to it as well. Okay, just an example of what GitHub projects looks like there, and then how you can turn it into the current sprint into a Kanban board style display. Okay, so some metrics and measures now. So we've got some qualitative and quantitative metrics and measures coming up now. So feedback from our senior RSEs. This is since we introduced it, so since April really, when everybody started using this process. So it was very interesting to see how this can help to manage the process and gets people involved in the projects. Allowing the person that you are developing the software for to add and change their requirements directly in the Kanban boards. So I guess they mean the product backlog there. Yeah, and power to the development team to work on those requirements that are in a way that they can use their expertise. And it mentions here about Scrum and Agile techniques could make things easier and more efficient. So generally good feedback from senior level RSEs. Yeah, transparency, focus, and communication it fosters are really helpful. So everything's sort of open, so all of the issue cards and the boards and the Kanban board, it's very easy to see what was achieved in previous sprints, where we're up to in this sprint, what the backlog is, so what might be upcoming, and be able to add, a bug's come up, just be able to add it into the product backlog. Or if it's urgent, into the current sprint, if the developers deem it that it's urgent. There were some robust opinions expressed, which gave us a chance to justify the reasons for what we were introducing. Yeah, so it was really interesting to see how the wider RSE reacted to the programme we have been developing. Yeah, so everyone's approached it with a high degree of professionalism, and it's brought up a lot of discussion as well. There was a chance for everybody in the 2-day training event to discuss how it would work, and we ran through activities using sprints, as you'd imagine, in the 2-day training course, and it was very much, we got a lot of feedback from that. So from the developers, I work on a relatively large project, and our team has been using Scrum since June last year. It's interesting to see how Agile methods can be applied flexibly to projects of different scales. Grappling with unclear user requirements presented some challenges. So this training equipped me with invaluable techniques to clarify requirements. That's definitely the case of what we found in a lot of the projects where we use it, prioritize them, and it's really good at counteracting ambiguity as well, and setting realistic expectations of what can be delivered, because it becomes very clear very quickly if the PI of a project starts throwing in extra things all the time, that if they want those extra things, something fixing, or just come and help me with this, this student seminar presentation I'm doing, then it's going to tasks that are on this sprint are not going to get done if they're being pulled away all the time to work on other things. So from developers, so the Scrum framework has served as common language, promoting more effective communication between different stakeholders. So communication again, and they weren't completely derailed by surprise changes in requirements, because changes are built into the process, and time boxing being useful. And the integration of GitHub for managing projects alongside the code is really a good approach. So we'll share the slides afterwards, so you can read those more if you want to. And then from the customers, so improve productivity through setting reasonable goals, making every concluding sprint feel like a great achievement. And it's great to have the transparency of the issue tracking too. So again, the customers, not saying this is all of them, but there are customers who enjoy that whole transparency thing. Ability for me to dynamically adjust the priorities helped me to feel closer to the project development. So feedback summary. So for the senior RSE Scrum Masters, similar we got senior RSE Scrum Masters similar values from the value from the process as the RSE developing, making complex things easier to handle, easy to manage requirement changes, efficiency, and I think transparency and time boxing came up in those as well. Customers generally value the visibility and control, yeah, so what we said here is it's difficult. We're not suggesting that this is a completely balanced fair poll for everybody. It's just there's a silent majority who don't get back and don't answer because they're too busy, or maybe they don't like it. That's just the feedback we've got. So now we're going to some more quantitative results now. So how has this affected behaviour in the last 5 months? So the best way we could think of to measure this in a quantitative way was to look at GitHub usage statistics using the GitHub API. So for all RSEs, we've looked at their commits, issues created, and PRs raised. Apparently the API is, I didn't put these in, apparently the API is quite difficult to use. So this is sort of, it just gives you a rough idea. So all our RSEs we've got, so the, sorry the colours aren't very different, but the green is 2024, so it looks like the commits are a bit less in 2024 than 2023, which is the blue. Issues created, so the green is that top one there, so more issues created, and PRs raised, more PRs raised this year. We did the training, the big training course in April. We did the first sort of dry run where about 5 or 6 RSEs did the course in January. So I guess there's a bit of a spike there, and then from then on it's higher. But so that's all RSEs. Senior RSEs, the commits. So again, not much to show in the commits. If anything, less commits. So for issues created, we've got lots more issues created, and that sort of fits in with how we use GitHub projects. And PRs raised. So it was a lot higher in 2024, but then yeah, generally a lot higher. These results are quite approximate. And then for junior RSE, so grade 6 and grade 4, 5, and 6 RSEs, you again similar with the commits, not much just positive to show there. For issues created, lots more issues created in 2024, and PRs raised, not a great deal of difference there. So summary of those results, little to no impact on commits, may be expected as Scrum does not necessarily impact Git use. So the local use of Git is where you're doing your commits. You know, when in the Agile Scrum course, we weren't teaching people to commit more often. Increase in issues created and PRs created, use of GitHub projects, process of breaking down issues are likely to be responsible for issues created, and a repo template with a branch protection rule set to enforce Git flow was introduced as part of the approach, which explains the latter for having to have generate a PR before it can be committed into the project. Senior RSEs have changed their behaviour more as they're responsible for the projects and leading by example. So it's too early to assess long-term trend. So we'll repeat it again next year, hopefully if we do another talk at RSECon or something similar. Okay, so finally, one last Mentimeter question. So would you adopt Scrum? So same link as last time, same code. And then if I switch over. Okay, I'm extremely confident that RSEs on my team would engage with the Scrum or similar Agile process. How much longer have I got, Claire? I can show the RSE-Con results as well if I've got time, but it's not. I can share
Yeah,
them anyway. Yeah.
yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So some tentatives there, probably and certainly. So I guess most of the results fall into the not at all and there's some more maybes there. So if you add the bottom half, that comes up to a lot more than the probablys and the certainlys. So I guess slightly negative results there. But I guess not every context is different, and we're not saying that the Agile for RSEs is the perfect system either. It works well in a lot of places and not all, so fair enough that we get a broad set of results. Okay, so what I'll quickly do then while I'm here, I'll just check that there isn't another slide. I don't think there is. Oh, sorry. I am extremely confident that academics on my research projects would engage with a Scrum or similar Agile process. Is there a limit, a cut-off time, maybe 1:45 or something? No, okay. Okay. We found with our academics that we kind of do the process anyway because it's our adopted way of working that we sort of document as that's how we work now, and we've found that they're once even if they don't know what it is and they don't care and they just want to get on with the project, we find that they just engage once they realize how it works. They engage with it. We've not really had any complaints like stop doing this or the PIs generally do engage with it because they've got the board up there, they know what's going on, and they have control over what goes into the product backlog and a bit of say into what the priorities are of the next sprints via the PO. Okay, I'll just quickly show you the RSE-Con results. So don't join this one because this is the RSE-Con one, so ignore that number up there. So this was their results. There was 136, so more responses in that. It was a big audience. Have you had any formal training? I'll just quickly go through these. Have you used Scrum? Yes, quite a few people have. Have you done it on an RSE project? Yeah, surprisingly, quite a number of people. How did you find it? Best thing I've ever done, a few again. Largely quite helpful. They're similar to results to yours. I'm extremely confident that RSEs on my team would engage with Scrum. So yeah, that was fairly positive. I'm extremely confident academics on my research project will engage with Scrum or Agile process. Right, I think I've missed a question, so I'll progress that. Sorry about that. I just found out there's another question. So for you guys, I am definitely going to suggest using Scrum-like Agile methods for RSE projects. You don't have to be nice, just be honest. I don't mind. Okay. Quickly flashback to what they said at the RSE-Con. So that was quite a lot said, certainly. Yeah, so that was quite positive on that. Yeah, fairly positive on this one as well. Okay, so I guess it's over to, I'll just double check there is, oh yes, I think, key point, I've got a key point slide, sorry, so I'll quickly go through that. Delivering value for researchers as an RSE service, as we're in Manchester, it requires a consistent yet flexible management approach. So zero management is not an option, and that includes management by exception. Just hide that. Research is necessarily dynamic and management shouldn't obstruct this. So agile methodologies, as we've seen, embrace continuous change, and providing practical tooling and workflows to make doing it easy are essential for adoption. Yeah, and don't ask anything of PIs, and then if they're willing to join in, let them join in. Don't be afraid to offend the purists. Adapt to suit your needs. I'd say that about most technical tools. And there's some further reading there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our seminar. Please check out the slides on Zenodo linked below and see you next time.